Good evening, and welcome again to the ever-swelling menagerie of maleficent comestibles known as the Food Gallery. Tonight, we stroll a peculiar hall which houses foods much feared, not for their flavors, but for the struggles required to put them to plate. The dreaded desserts are here, such as the confoundingly contradictory baked Alaska, the tempestuously temperamental tart tatin, and then, of course, there's my favorite. Behold, the notorious baklava, a seemingly impossible amalgamation of nuts, syrup, and phyllo dough. Yes, phyllo. Many modern cooks won't allow this dangerously finicky dough into the house for fear of finding in its unfurling pages of crackling, crinkling horror a foe insurmountable and inedible. But I would argue that phyllo's nasty reputation has been falsely generated by manufacturers intent upon selling you their spanakopita, their bareki, their baklava. I say the cook who fights this fear with solid science, righteous technique, and a handful of decent ingredients will surely be rewarded, not just with dessert, but with... Okay, before we take one step into the wonderful world of baklava, we're going to get something straight, okay? And it's this. Phyllo is nothing to fear. I mean, look at it. Just look at it. It's bread. I mean, you're not afraid of bread, are you? You're not afraid of loaf bread or baguettes or challah or sourdough or pizza, huh? Okay, well, I'll admit, pizza dough can be a little intimidating, but you get the point. Phyllo is just bread. Sure, it's as thin as a page from the family Bible, but it's still just bread. Look, if phyllo's gotten a bad rap, it's because people want to fuss over it all the time, and we're not going to do any fussing, okay? Phyllo, bread, not scary, no fussing, done. Good, let's go shop. Luckily for all, nearly every Megamart freezer case in the country offers up frozen boxes of phyllo. And personally, I wouldn't buy it any other way. But remember, this stuff is very, very sensitive to time and temperature abuses, which can leave it dry, crusty, and clumped together. So I suggest you either grab from the very back of the stash or shop at a market where a high turnover is guaranteed, such as a Middle Eastern or a Greek market. I'll bring a cooler and pack in between other frozen goods, like ice cream and, well, ice cream. Now, this has bought us some time, but we need to get into the home freezer as soon as possible. Now, although phyllo means leaf in Greek, and many Greek restaurants feature dishes wrapped in its delicate crunch, baklava was actually born far into the north, where once upon a time nomadic Turks dined on unleavened griddle breads called yufka, while the Persians next door, like this careless carpet flyer, snacked on nut and honey concoctions. The way I figure it, one day a rogue Scirocco blew up and sent one pilot down to a tasty fate.
Pardon, but I believe you've got a great dose of your gooiness onto my yufka.
Perhaps it is you who's inserted your breadiness into my naughty goodness.
Hey, that's not bad.
Boy, howdy. Hey, have you seen where my carpet landed?
A historic day, to say the least. The nut phase is simple, yet very much reflects the true Middle Eastern soul of the dish. Take, for instance, 6 ounces of pistachios. This group was probably born in northeastern Iran or Afghanistan and was such a favorite with Nebuchadnezzar that the Babylonian king planted the trees in his legendary hanging gardens. Legend also holds that the Queen of Sheba passed a law declaring pistachios to be a royal food, forbidden to comic folk. Don't worry, I've got more. Now, let's fast forward to Rome, 30 A.D. The Emperor Vitellius introduces pistachios to the city-state. And from what they say, he loves them so much, he finishes every single meal with a big ol' handful. Next, 6 ounces of walnuts, also from the Middle East, also featured in the Hanging Gardens of Babylon. But in this case, there is a strong Greek connection via a mysterious woman named Caria, who was loved by the god Dionysus. And when she died, he turned her into a tree. Wacky lovers, this Greek. Of course, the Romans also dug walnuts, as the name itself stems from Hovis glans, or loosely translated, the royal nut of Job, who is of course, the Roman version of Zeus, who I'm sure had some great nuts too. Now, although American black walnuts would do here, I prefer the Persian varieties because they're meatier, they're more authentic to the recipe, and, well, they're just about the only commercial type available. Last but not least, 6 ounces of blanched almonds, and I've got raw almonds. Oh, well, we'll adapt. And it couldn't be simpler. Simply place 6 ounces by weight of raw almonds in a small pot and cover with 2 cups of water. Turn the heat to high and bring to a boil. Should take about 3 or 4 minutes. When the water is good and boiling, kill the heat and drain the almonds into a colander. Spray with cold water to cool them down, and then simply pinch them right out of their skins. Easy as that. Use immediately or allow to dry and store in an airtight container in the fridge or freezer for up to 3 months. Spices. Further proof that baklava was born along the old Mideast trade routes is the fact that most classic recipes call for both cinnamon and allspice, which were very precious commodities back in those days. Now, we would never, ever reach for dried, pre-ground megamart spices for a dish like this, would we? Especially when grinding our own is easy. This is especially true of allspice. That is because the little berries of Pimento officinalis are very regular in shape and size, so we'll simply count out 15 of these guys when we go to the grinder. Now, cinnamon's a little trickier. I mean, sure, you could grab one of these and say, hey, I've got myself whole cinnamon. The problem is, most of what is sold as cinnamon in this country, short, thick, heavily curled, dark pieces like this, are actually cinnamomum cassia, okay, which is very, very harsh in flavor and aroma, kind of a single note perfume. Not complex, just loud. What we want for this dish is true cinnamon. Cinnamomum xylanicum, okay? And that generally comes in quills like this. You'll notice that it's lighter in color than cassia, okay? Always lighter. You can also get it from Vietnam in the larger economy size. This is taken from the bottom of the tree. Or if you drop off in Indonesia someplace, you can get one suitable for making a dugout canoe. But you don't have to do that. Just make sure when you go to your local spice vendor, you look for the true cinnamon for this dish. To the grinder. Good. Now, the next phase is the spritz, and for that, we need just a good clean spritz bottle. Polycarbonate is my choice, with 1/4 cup of clean water and a teaspoon of rose water. Oh, thank you, Thing. They're lovely, but I said rose water. Actually, rose water is a byproduct of distilling rose oil, which is used in perfumes. Blah. The highly floral water is used as a finishing touch in many a Middle Eastern dish, such as marzipan, Turkish delight, and, of course, baklava. Ooh, now, traditionally, damask roses are distilled. Oh. Yeah, I usually pick this up at an international market down the street, but, oh, what the heck. Let's just make our own. First, we'll need a really big pot. Canning kettle is perfect for the job for many reasons you'll see shortly. Inside goes a nice clean brick right down into the bottom, and then rose petals. I've got about a quart here. By the way, you can get these really cheap, if not free, from a florist. They don't have to be pretty, they just have to smell good. Next, the solvent, water, about 1/2 gallon, or whatever it takes to come right up to the edge of the brick. We want to make sure that the petals are all submerged. There we go. And to catch the distillate, we'll need a stainless steel bowl right down on top of the brick, and it needs to be a little bit more narrow than the kettle itself. Then we're going to get the lid of the kettle, turn it upside down, and fill it full of ice. That way the steam will hit the lid and, of course, condense back down into the bowl. Now, in about an hour, we will have somewhere between a cup and a pint of fresh, delicious, fragrant rose water. Now, would purchasing a bottle be easier? Absolutely. Just make sure that what you purchase is indeed 100% pure rose water. Otherwise, you're going to have to do this. Okay, so the ice is melted, so I'm just going to kind of carefully pour that down the side of the pot, making sure not to get it, of course, in the stainless steel bowl. And there we have our rose water. Remember, for our entire recipe, we only need 1 little teaspoon. It's strong stuff, you know. I have seen hundreds of recipes call for simply melting butter and brushing it onto the phyllo layers. But let us keep in mind that the average stick of butter is 8% water by weight. And that is a lot of wetness to make those phyllo layers get sticky. So we are going to clarify butter. We'll need 8 ounces, 2 sticks. So our butter goes into a small saucepan over high heat and melt it until it actually boils, and that is, of course, the water percentage cooking out. And slowly start turning the temperature down until the milk solids start to separate out. Eventually, they'll sink and turn a little bit brown, which I like, although technically you could call that ghee, but that's another show. All right, I'm going to let this cool for a few minutes before using. I should mention that tightly sealed and refrigerated clarified butter will keep for about 100 years, give or take a month or two. Now, everything's done. Time to put together our assembly area. Well, it appears that our station is in order. We have our nut and spice mixture here. Our clarified butter is standing by nice and cool. Our rose water spritz here. 9 by 13 pan for construction. And a nice big clean area for our phyllo, plus a knife to trim it with. All we need now is a basting brush. Most cooks don't think too much about basting or basting brushes, despite the effect that they can have on the final appearance, flavor, and texture of many foods. Now, let us consider the options, beginning with shapes. All right, now round brushes are ideal for distributing shortening into nooks and crannies of pans, say a butt pan or an intricate Kugelhof. It's a blunt tool meant to be jabbed and poked rather than brushed. For brushing, we have the classic flat paintbrush style, which comes in varying widths and lengths. And like the hardware store models that they resemble, they smoothly apply low to medium viscosity liquids. You know, things like melted butter and barbecue sauce. Now, the other shape I call a mop, which is meant to slop and plop barbecue sauce and the like onto big old hunks of hog and other critters. Not exactly precision tools. Now, let's talk about materials. Natural bristles or hog's hair brushes, they load well. That means that they soak up a lot of material and they neatly apply a wide range of viscosity liquids, but they tend to be hard to wash. They can pick up and hold strange flavors, and as they age, they start dropping bristles into your food, which is never good eats. Now, nylon bristles can load up very, very well, badly. They're vulnerable to heat damage, they're a pain to clean, and near as I can tell, besides being cheap, there are really no pros to nylon brushes. Now, if you hang out in a cooking emporium, or have over the last few years, you've no doubt noticed silicone basting brushes like this, and like this, and like this. They completely monopolize the racks of stores now because of their goofy shapes and their candy color schemes. Now, silicone is easy to clean. It's dishwasher safe, can tolerate temperatures in excess of 600 degrees, which means they can stick their little floppy heads way down into the grill. And of course, they're perfect for, you know, like tickling things. But silicone loads lousy, and that means making a lot of drippy trips back and forth, you know, if you get my drift. Now, I would have given up on these things entirely if it were not for one small advance. Certain models now sport these kind of little flat paddle areas right in the middle of the bristles, okay? And it's full of holes, and when dipped in something like butter, they fill up, kind of like the bubble wands you used to play with as a kid. Now, I still keep around a few other brushes for various tasks, but for butter, there can be only one. There. I think that's about finished. Time now to face the phyllo. Okay, one whole package, a pound, straight from the freezer into the microwave on high for 60 seconds. I know, most recipes call for thawing in the fridge, but that inevitably means moisture buildup, and moisture leads to gummy phyllo, which is nigh on impossible to work with. Trust me on this. Now, the phyllo is going to be a lot easier to work with if it's the right size. So just lay your pan on across the stack and use it as a guide. Trim with a sharp knife. There. Now, traditionally, a moist towel is laid across the phyllo stack to keep it from drying out. Hogwash, I say. Just work quickly and you're not going to have any troubles whatsoever. Okay, first step. Brush the pan with butter. And make sure you get the corners. That's important. There. Now, we'll bring on the first sheet. You'll notice that I like to lift away, bring it over, and then lay it down towards me. It's almost like putting a new sheet on a bed. And now we'll butter the top. Now, I like to just kind of sprinkle the butter around first and then smooth it out, spread it, always moving towards the side so I don't fold it up on itself. Now, we repeat this with 9 more sheets with butter between each of them. That's a total of 10. Okay, now the first installment of nuts, 1/3 evenly distributed. Now you don't want to pack them down, but you don't want air pockets either. Good. Now the spritz with the rose water, and don't be alarmed if the room suddenly smells like your grandmother just walked in. This is, after all, the signature aroma of old women everywhere. Okay, now 6 sheets of phyllo go on, just as before, with butter between each layer. Okay, now a second installment of nuts and a second spritz. This we will follow with another 6 sheets with butter between every layer. Okay, the last installment of nuts goes on, and the final installment of Odo Lady. Tastes good though, believe me. And we top that with 8 sheets of phyllo with butter in between. So that's a total of 30 sheets all day, each one with a little bit of butter in between. All right, into the 350-degree oven for 30 minutes. Then we will remove it, cut it into portions, and bake another 30. Ah, good even browning. Now we cut. Just use a plain old paring knife for this, non-serrated, and saw straight up and down. Don't worry about cutting through every bit of dough. We'll take care of that later. And don't worry if the top layer shatters a little bit as you cut. It'll all come back together later when the syrup comes home to roost. There, now back in, and we'll bake for another 30 minutes. Meanwhile, we will construct phase 4, the syrup. Sugar from cane really didn't make it to the Middle East until the 10th or 11th centuries, which is why most of the classic desserts of the region are sweetened exclusively with honey. Now, our application will make use of 1 1/4 cups of orange blossom honey, but because I find honey overpowering in large amounts, because sugar-based syrups set more solidly, I will use the same amount of good old citizen cane. So, 1 1/4 cup each. Honey and sugar goes into a 4-quart saucepan, along with 1 piece of cinnamon and a nice piece of orange zest, and a 1 1/4 cup of water. I'll bring that to a boil over a high heat, stirring every now and then. And when it gets to a boil, let it stay at a boil for a solid 10 minutes. Then remove the bits and pieces and use immediately. Or if you let it cool, make sure you reheat it before adding it to the baklava. Ah, good. Exactly what we want to see. Now let this cool to room temperature before introducing the syrup to the party. All right, 2 hours are up. It is time to re-perforate our baklava. Before you do this, if you made your syrup ahead of time, go ahead and put some heat to it so it'll be nice and steamy when it goes onto the dough. So let's just retrace our steps, shall we? Now, I realize at this point that it looks like there's just way too much syrup, but believe me, over the next 8 hours, it will all be absorbed. Yeah, 8 hours. Well, look, I said it was good, and I said it was easy. I never said it was fast. And so in the end, we see that when armed with a little understanding, the fear falls away, and we can see baklava for what it really is. Fun, easy to bake, a snap to build, a delicious piece of history on a plate, which may be worthy of placement in a museum, but also deserving of a place in our kitchens. Not to mention on Good Eats. Good night.